generating the JavaScript files and then this JavaScript communication. So the logic is a little different from RChain API because I wanted this more general way of defining a wrapper. So this is like just a helper library without all of the like specific definitions. So it is meant to use just to generate all the helper files and with one function create like a wrapper, like a promise wrapper for all the methods. So I can show you example how to use it, right? It has like CLI to generate, and it can be used in a npm script. So this is the CLI command. Are you seeing my screen?
Yeah.
This is CLI command that you get with the library, and calling this CLI command will just download all the necessary files and generate the JavaScript code. So if you add it to your project, you just execute and you will get everything. But you can also specify some stuff, like some options. You can specify the rnode version. And this is the difference between this library and the RChain API, because I wanted to have this ability to just specify a version and not to be tied inside the library for specific node version. You can just say, I want this version, and you will get all the files necessary for this version. So, and you can specify the folder where this is generated. And this is an example of clients for Node.js and for browser directly. And for browser, of course, with Envoy proxy. What is nice, and what I wanted to be able to have a code that is completely identical between Node.js and the browser, right? It is very nice that it can be possible. Right? So this is the whole code for Node.js. You just reference the library, and this library has a rnode client function, and this function accepts these arguments, accepts this gRPC service, which is generated with these protobuf tools, and it needs proto schema, which is also generated but with another tool, protobuf.js. And I'm using this schema to understand how to construct types, right? Which types has which property, and this is the generic part of the library. And when you have these two things, you just supply it to this constructor function, and you can get all the functions from the gRPC service.
And you generated the deploy client service with the proto C, or?
Exactly. Yeah, this is not my code. This is generated.
Yeah, but with proto C, so it's a static code.
Static code. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you have these two things, you can get these functions, which are really the services, gRPC services, or with the Envoy proxy, it is like HTTP calls, and they are just promise-based methods. So you invoke the function, this is like a gRPC call, and you get the result. And I made this transformation from this generated types to like plain JavaScript object. And the work was transforming these plain objects to these special types, because you have function to other way. You can just say to object and you get the JavaScript object. But this transformation from plain objects, it was a little difficult.
Yeah, that's why where I stuck with the static implementation of fixing rnode API, because I have objects and how do I feed the calls with the JavaScript, just JavaScript bracket style objects.
Yeah,
so you're doing this with the proto schema.
Yeah, I can show you. This is the code of this transformation, and I'm using this fill object function to analyze what are the properties of this object, and then I extract the setter from this generated this gRPC proto C generated stuff, which is like more with functions, right? It's not a JSON. And
like Java, like you're writing in Java.
Yeah, and when I have this setter, I just set the value from the JavaScript object, and I'm doing this like recursively. And this is the main thing to populate all of these things. And other function is create this method. For each service, I create a wrapper which can handle response, streams, and streams are converted to arrays, and also handles either type, and either type is really it cannot be statically you cannot statically find out what is the type inside either, because either is it has a byte array as a value inside. So statically you don't know, and when you generate all of these JavaScript files, you still don't know, because in proto file you don't have I can show you the proto files. So this is my client. It already has downloaded. So when you look in the proto files, and this is exactly the thing that you mentioned, NotZipper. Why we don't use proto files as a source of everything, right? So I'm showing the proto files because I'm looking at the proto files as a source for all of the types. You can see exactly what are the properties of each of these functions, and you can say, okay, I need to create this kind of JavaScript object. This is your specification.
Yeah, and I as I understood from the Dan's description, he uses flow typed for like help in the when you're creating an object. Flow type will help, will suggest you how should you create this object. I couldn't manage to make it work, but I think this is like a tool that can be useful here.
Yeah, and I will generate my own TypeScript and flow definitions, because this either any of these generators will generate either as either type, but you cannot connect it to know what is inside this either, because only information when this is written is here in the comment. Yeah. So this is why this either is really it's dynamic type. So we have static specification, but either is dynamic. It is not static, because either has this bytes value inside. What I found out is when you make request to gRPC, this will be populated. This type URL will be populated with dynamic string representation of the type that is serialized here. So I can use go to. I can use. I can parse this string, and I can extract the value of the type. I can find out what type it is, and I can populate. I can deserialize exactly what exactly the right type. I can find this generated type, and I can use the serialized binary function on this type. So in dynamic sense, we have this information, but on the static side, we don't have it. So to generate correct TypeScript definitions, with, and also for either, we need some additional magic, right? Because we need we don't have this information on the static level, so we need to interpret this comment and extract this type. So I see this as a little problem, right? But all the other stuff can be generated.
Sorry, I missed a bit the last part. So you have type information in the either object, but you didn't manage to extract that part yet, right?
Yeah, I have it when you make the real request, because in each request you will get this type URL populated with the correct type. So rnode will give you, when you say get block, inside this either for success request, he will give you block query response.
Yeah, but yep. Do you actually need a static this information to write a code, because you will use get block request, and you're expecting it to return block query response. So you don't need to get this type in the runtime.
Yeah, in the runtime, I know what is the type because it is written here, but I cannot generate automatically TypeScript definitions for this type. It is not possible today because you don't have this information. It's just here in the comment. And
yeah, but you can generate TypeScript information about the block query response. What field does it contain? You cannot generate. You can have information that get block should respond you with block query response, but yeah, that's not a very like a big deal. You can you just know that it is this response because there is not a lot of responses.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But it would be nice to have like the complete signature that you can.
Yeah, I would just
promise of either of this block query response.
Yeah, maybe. But actually, this is super cool. What you just did.
Yeah,
it is awesome.
Yeah. I just wanted to have it functional. Yeah.
And do you have the access to crypto functions in the browser?
Yeah, this is my next step. I want to extend this library with helper functions to do this repeating stuff, like generating keys or this kind of stuff. So you can just compose functions and you will get everything.
That's great.
I can show you how you can start from the scratch.
Maybe it will be a nice idea to integrate it with the extension, browser extension, to submit some data for sign. So just write an interface that will tell you, let me sign this, and maybe some other. Maybe I will get to figuring out how to make our sign works, so we can just make some kind of MetaMask style signing.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm planning to make some templates that you can start, that you can just create your own extension and I don't know, play with it and.
Awesome.
So nr is npm run. So this is the same. nr is just shortcut. So I will delete everything in node modules also. So the idea is that you have installed this base library for generating everything. So first of all, I need to install all of the dependencies. I have here all of the commands that you need. So for this client app, but more generally for this library, you need the library, of course, and these two things, gRPC and gRPC Web, they're libraries, runtime libraries for Node.js. This is like real gRPC, and gRPC Web is a HTTP library that can talk to Envoy proxy. So if you use Node.js, you use gRPC. If you want to use just this HTTP in the browser, you need gRPC Web. This is runtime stuff. And for this library to work, you need these external tools to generate all this stuff. Because library, it depends on this stuff, but it not install this other stuff. So you can choose which version of this library you will use or whatever. So I have it here already, the library and these two tools. And now I need a script that will call this CLI command, which is installed automatically with rnode gRPC.js. So I will just call rnode generate npm run rnode generate. And if I don't specify any options, it will just use the default folder, and inside you will have all the stuff downloaded and generated. And here are the proto files. Does this make sense so far?
Yeah, totally. For me.
Okay. After you have this downloaded, you really only need to reference these two files that are generated in JS folder. This is like the entry point for all of the generated file. And in the background, these files generate proto global variable, which is a little strange, but this is how it works. And I'm using this proto global instance to get to other instances that are generated. So I only need to have this deploy service client supply to this my function. And that's it. This is like the whole thing you need to do. After that, you can start making calls. Yeah, you're right. You need to supply URL.
That's super awesome. And can you a bit expand on how the library working with the web through the Envoy?
Yep.
It's not so, like a translation to the RESTful way. How are these calls?
It is the interface is very similar. So when you use gRPC tools, you need additional plugin that is downloaded here. This executable, and this executable can generate this web stuff. So with gRPC, this is like a basic gRPC communication, and gRPC Web is this HTTP wrapper, which calls. I think it's very similar in constructions, but just on HTTP. And this file is a little different than this gRPC, but in a sense, it's like in the same style.
Mm.
When you have a web client, you need to reference this web generated client, and when you on the node you reference this gRPC, not a web client. So this is the only difference. You just reference another file, not gRPC but gRPC web. This is the only difference. And one also difference is that in gRPC version you need to specify credentials always.
Mm.
Yeah, and then this is the only difference. All of the other code is the same.
Man, I'm excited.
And this should work for any new version, because I don't rely on the version. I just go to code CLI. For now, I'm just specifying what files do I need to download. This is the only thing. So I can imagine if there is some big change and new proto files is defined, I can like recognize, okay, this is like version before this file and after this, before this file is added, and after I can have a new set of files.
Okay. I think I can try to move the Josh's status up to this library.
Cool.
So it's kind of more universal than RChain API.
Yeah, and the RChain API can use this library to generate all of those files. Yeah. So this is not a library to specify all the files, all the services, APIs, or this is just helper to generate everything, and without be tied to specific version of the tools or the version of the rnode. So that was my goal. Yeah,
but you have right now access to all the API calls, so you right now can add this library to your project, instantiate the client, and call the gRPC endpoints.
Yeah. I will publish Envoy proxy to all of the testnet endpoints.
Cool.
And we can publish this as part of the sandbox, right? Because this is like a Docker in which Envoy is running.
We need just one node, one server, so we can publish 10 Envoy proxies.
Yeah. I was testing Envoy proxies with like a URL, not the specific. Like if you want to have on one domain multiple proxies, but it did not work. So I'm not sure what is the problem, but we can definitely specify hosts for each validator, and then have for each of them a specific port on the Envoy side.
Did you investigate if this gRPC web stuff can be used for generating the RESTful documentation, for example, for Swagger and open API stuff?
I didn't look into it, but I doubt that they too much paid attention to be compatible, because this is very closely like copied the gRPC version, right? You use the same functions, you use the same serializer, so I'm not sure how it's compatible with OpenAPI. But We
And
have
gRPC web have to work with the envoy,
yeah,
right?
yeah. They are the one. They are the like one thing.
Ah, yeah, I got this.
Google said, okay, we have this strange protocol which doesn't work in browser, but we will create a proxy and we will create these JavaScript generators, and I'm not happy about that. It's
Yeah, understood. Okay.
because I wrote similar code multiple times, right? You have specification and you interpret all of the types and everything, because this generated code is it's duplicated, right? It's when you take a look at this one, it's just duplication of everything,
Yeah.
with the different names. So you could have some JSON specification and just have 3 functions, and that's it.
It's like moving back to SOAP from the RESTful.
Yeah. and and here is exactly the Greg had the point. When you have some language, people start to think in terms of this language, and here is exactly visible how Go, the protobuf stuff is built in Go. So, and Go doesn't have generics, and this is exactly, you can see it in everything related to protobuf. Like this either type is also not generic, right? You cannot specify what is the inside either.
Yeah.
I mean, the only way you can do it is just to repeat different either types for each of these methods. You can say this is either of visual block response or either block query response, but you cannot have only one either that can have some kind of like stuff like this, like generic either of this, which is crazy.
Guys, I managed to reproduce that bug. I ran
Nice.
all the deploys from the scratch, and it failed on the exact line with first invalid transaction and then invalid and slash will block.
Okay, this is totally strange.
Yes, it is indeed.
Maybe you can last 10 files, before this one, this robot file.
Sorry?
You know what I'm thinking. You have many files before this last one. Maybe
yes.
You can restrict it even more and say, I will leave the 10 before that and see if...
Yeah, and check
yeah,
which one will give this behavior. And actually, after invalid and slash will block, I have another incorrect number of results from query of current bonds. So it looks like, Rao, your idea to deploy arbitrary stuff is actually really helpful because it just exposes some really strange stuff.
Well, I'm glad that's working. I mean, just thinking from first principles, it should work. Meaning, it just gives a different degree and variety of testing against the stuff, right? So I hope that'll help. Now, I was wondering, in terms of the analysis of what passed or what deployed and what did not deploy, do we have any ideas on how we may be able to simplify it for ourselves? Like we were talking about, can we, based on date or something, identify which repositories we don't necessarily expect to pass at all, and then that will eliminate some of the noise? And then maybe there's some of the other stuff we may be able to look at.
I guess yes, we can look at the last date of modification, so we can tie the file with the date where it was edited last time. So at least if it's very old, it most probably won't run well.
Yeah, I'm not sure what information I have with this tool.
The harvester.
We can actually just download the whole page and and scrap HTML for the date, so it's pretty easy.
Yeah, at least the date part, I don't know if even GitHub has, without the harvester tool, might have filters if you feed it the list of things. But yeah, I think that part should be easy. But once we eliminate those is where the tricky analysis begins to say, you know, how many repos are left and what can we make out of those, that kind of thing. And I guess the date should be looked at the file level, not at the repo level, right?
Yeah, it's the file that is being examined.
Yeah.
So we have this information.
Okay.
Tomislav, I want one more time tell that awesome work. I really enjoy this stuff.
Thanks. If you have any idea for something else, please let me know, and
yeah.
I will continue adding stuff, because I didn't implement any logic about converting the rolling types, right? The par, send, receives. This is part of raw core, so I will definitely put something inside for that.
So Tomislav, what you're doing basically is an auto generation of an RChain API off of the gRPC level. Is that? Yeah. Okay.
And just it allows you to call these from the web and right. from the Node.js. So it's a universal library that just allows you to call gRPC methods really, really fast.
Right.
Yeah, and maybe we can, create some web-based UI and applications that we can, for example, pull the files that we need to inspect, and we can say, okay, now any user can log into this application and can run this, deploy these files and check the errors, and maybe we can split the work in this fashion.
Yeah,
you don't have to run your own node and everything else. You just open the browser and you browse the files, run the files, and fix some syntax errors and just report I fix it. So maybe we can do this kind of stuff.
And I guess this would work with any gRPC, not just RChain gRPC interface, right?
So yeah, but not completely. I'm depending on some edge cases. For example, I'm extracting this this nested path inside the schema. Right? This is like crop, RChain, Casper protocol. It's nested type inside the JSON. So I can generalize this, but I didn't want to spend too much time to be completely general. Right? I want to just be general in the sense of RChain. But yeah, you're right. You can be more general. Later I'm planning to replace some of these generators with my code, because I can generate this stuff more easily.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you need to plug in, just like you're plugging in the Casper or RChain Casper, maybe for different things that you want it to be general too. You just need to plug different things, right? I mean, that I don't know if that would take care of that.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah, that sounds like a very useful piece for people to quickly develop web applications using this.
Yeah. And we need more like templates. So I will create more templates so you can just easily clone the repository and just start working on your tab.
Yeah.
And also what Jim would like, I will generate GraphQL types. So you will have all of this API directly in GraphQL.
In where? Sorry.
In GraphQL.
GraphQL. Yeah.
GraphQL.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's cool.
I know that Jim waits for this for very long.
Right.
Rao, actually, don't you know something about our song efforts? I saw that there is a repo in the GitHub with the front end for our song application. I wonder if there is some work ongoing. Maybe someone is building some UIs, what they're using for from the web page as a library. Who working on this?
Yeah, so I don't know who is working on that. I would imagine K1 would be the one to ping on that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I would say on that. But I have not been following, or I don't have much visibility into it, in that it's not part of the core platform development stuff.
Okay, thanks.
So, yeah.
Okay, guys. It was very, very interesting session, but I have to run. Thank you very much.
Thanks for your work on this stuff.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Nadzipper, for all the testing stuff. And I think we need to look at what else we can do in terms of running that to see what we may be able to discover with the existing repos. Sure. Thank you.
Yeah, bye.
All right. See you later. Bye. So Tomislav, I have a question for you with this web API that you're talking about. Is there a way to further make it easy for a web developer to, with the templates and all that you're talking about, is there a way to make it easier to really just to get an RChain based web application going in just a few clicks kind of thing?
Well,
are there too many pieces to be built for that?
Well, what I shown it's really all of the stuff that you need.
Okay.
So
like, can we build a web page with the stuff right now as we look at this, or it's for another session perhaps?
I already have this as an example. So
oh, you do. Okay.
I can say npm run, which means run this command.
Mm-hmm.
This is like a scripts that are defined as a part of the npm package.
Okay.
And I can start this web application. This is like a regular web application, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the only code is code that is here. And it doesn't have any UI visible. It just writes this stuff to the console. So
I see.
When I open my localhost in the console, I will see the output.
Yeah.
And this is exactly the output from gRPC. And because this is in the browser, of course, I'm assuming this is this proxy between. But you have an API. You call these methods like any other methods. You don't care about the protocol. Is it this HTTP, gRPC, or whatever else? That's okay.
Right. So what I was wondering was, if we take this and take a robot or something like that, and are we able to do like whether we use it for actual election or not, are we able to mock an election app out of this? That's kind of what I was wondering.
Yeah. You have all the available communication with target.
Or maybe more basic, that text messaging functionality that you demoed the other day. Could that be a part of, with the gRPC connection that you have now? Just that being able to text to,
so like a web-based chat you're talking
about?
about? Okay.
Yeah, because he had that working the other day, but I'm not sure how that fit into what he presented today. But, that was functionality that, that we were seeing.
Yeah, what I wanted to show is with my previous demo, it's that a lot of this stuff is just a matter of JavaScript and regular front-end programming, right? The only stuff that you have right now is you have this another database which is called rnode, right? Which is blockchain, but in the sense it's just another database, right?
Okay.
So you really need to learn how to talk to this another database. This is what is challenge to front-end development, right? Because all of the other stuff is like a normal stuff. You call these methods and you get the data. Right? But with rnode, it's a little different, right? You create a deploy and then you wait for something, right? You have this additional thing you are doing. So I will gradually create some helper stuff that will abstract this deploy and listen, right? Because we don't want to talk about the gRPC or HTTP because this is like a protocol. But from the another perspective, we can see this like in more broad sense, and we can say, okay, now we want to abstract over deploy and listen. Right. Now we want just to send the data and get the data. And all of this deploy and listen, we want to be in the background. Right? Because in pure essence, we just want to talk about the data that we are sending and receiving. Right? And all of this deploy, listen, gRPC, HTTP is just a noise.
Right. That's all just RChain jargon, really, from an application, DApp application perspective. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. So from the perspective of JavaScript developer, what does it mean to have a blocks? Right? Doesn't make any sense. What blocks? Right? What are blocks? So we need to make this another abstraction to work with rnode. In that sense, we need some additional stuff, right? And this is exactly my point. We can focus on this stuff and say all of the other stuff is just the JavaScript and regular stuff, and you should not care about it.
So would that be something like a blockchain to JSON or something like that, or what would that abstraction look like?
Yeah, I'm still thinking about that because you need to be aware of your keys, because this is the database that work with private and public keys. So you need to be aware of that. We don't want to hide something. We just want to abstract.
Right.
We want to say, okay, this key is something that you can use for these purposes, right? Because your keys enables you to protect some channel, right? You can say, I can only write and I can only read from this channel, and this is how you communicate.
Right. Okay. So switching the topic slightly, unless somebody has a question on this, you were talking the other day about using Rolang to generate arbitrary Rolang code fragments, right? So how complicated is that? Or is that relatively straightforward to do?
Well, but I was thinking on Greg's example of lifelike behavior. When you supply to some contract, you supply or to some process, you supply another process, another contract, and you can constrain this process to have some amount of resources that you want to give them, and right, you can spawn many copies that as you wish. And in that sense, I was thinking that we can have this master process that can, we can just supply to this process whatever we want, but it will be some kind of sandbox where we can say, okay, but you are running too many times, right? we want to run this contract 1,000 times and not more. So this is what I was thinking. I'm not sure how this is possible or convenient, or I know that now we have a limited way of constraining resources, right? We don't have cost accounting, right?
Yeah, we don't have cost accounting, but we could certainly say, I would think either in terms of number of blocks or number of iterations or something like that, we may be able to constrain. Some surrogate at which we say, okay, this has run long enough, kind of a thing. And of course, you could take the existing contracts in the pile that's working, or something like that, and then put this through the process that you're talking about.
Yeah.
So I think the pieces you need to kind of design and build that kind of a thing are there. Meaning, once you build it, you would be able to quickly assess its usefulness, I would think.
Yeah. I would definitely want to try it, but yeah.
But what is this for?
Testing. This is the random testing. This is like an alternative to what Gary was going to do.
Is that what you're thinking of, Thomas Love? This is a testing?
Yeah, not only for testing, but yeah, definitely it can be used for testing. Yeah.
What other uses would you do with this? I guess it's more a generic framework for building a Roland app. Is kind of what you're thinking about that, or?
Yeah, and what Greg was saying for these stuff that are, well, I'm thinking this in terms of how you can use reflection, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because, I mean, you're looking at modeling life, right? Is that what you're talking about, Thomas?
Yeah.
Jim, what did you say? I didn't hear what you said.
Is looking at modeling life with Roland.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, where you're modeling living systems. Now, in terms of what you were saying, Rao, in terms of having some process to control a process, an arbitrary process, and limit its resources utilization, we don't have any capability to do that. If you run something that uses resources, we have no way of interacting with it, unless there's something provided for us to do that directly. But there's no general way that we can interact with some running process in Roland, or on RChain.
Well, so the specific comment I was making was about number of blocks or something. You're saying that kind of a thing is not available?
Not available at all. I mean, it's something that's generating 1,000 blocks. We can't even tell what it is. You can't even have a Roland tell what you don't even know what program is doing it.
So now this is I think connected to what I was saying, that inside the Roland we have very limited information that we can ask the virtual machine. So I'm not sure that we can get number of blocks, or right.
Oh, I see.
Maybe you have this information on gRPC, but you cannot call gRPC from Roland directly. So in that sense, you can do all of the Roland stuff, but you cannot ask these questions from inside.
Oh, I see.
This makes sense.
Mm-hmm. This was the same thing you were talking about the other day. Why can't Roland directly talk to Casper or whatever to? Did you put anything about that either to Greg or anybody else? I know you spoke with Arthur.
Yeah, I didn't do anything else. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe if it is going to be very useful, it may be worthwhile to kind of put some kind of a proposal. I don't know how complicated that is. I mean, is that something that the community can build, or it's not possible because of the Rolang?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like a it's not something that is on the periphery of the code, right? It's like very involved in the whole project.
Okay.
Because you need to reference the other to the other projects, and so yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
But
yeah,
I can imagine that in the future we will have all of this functionality included, right? Because
yeah, I think you should bring it up to Greg and Mike Stay and whoever else so that they can kind of cogitate over that and see.
But I think that it's probably it is on maybe on the roadmap, but not today. You know.
Well, the backlog is visible to you, right? You can see the backlog, the developer's backlog.
I must admit I didn't look at
in Jira, yeah. So it's visible to you, and then maybe you can put that in there as a feature request to say this will be nice, and see.
In a sense, this HTTP demo was somehow in that sense closely related to this.
Right. So I wonder with what you have in terms of in gRPC, with what you were proposing, are you able to once in a while check the gRPC and then stop or control your process? Meaning you have two processes. One is a monitor gRPC for blocks kind of a process, and then you have your own process running. And when this process kind of creates an alert saying that, okay, now I've done 1,000 blocks, you kill your main process or something like that.
I'm not sure that I understand what you're asking me.
No, basically you're talking about within Rolang, as you keep on doing things, like modeling life, but you don't want to have it continue forever and you want to kill it at some point, right? You want to stop it at some point. So the only thing you really need to know is, where do I stop? That's the input you need. And I'm saying, could you not get that where do I stop input from the gRPC outside of your Rolang process that are modeling life?
So with gRPC, you really, or with the deploy, you really like making a transaction. Like you're updating the state. So right. You're saying, I will make all of these changes to the state. So with gRPC, you're not able to do anything else, right? You can just say, I'm updating the state and I'm checking this channel for a value.
Okay, so because I thought you were just saying a little while ago that within gRPC it may be available, but it's not available within Rolang. Is kind of what I was keying off of. But did I understand incorrectly?
I was thinking that you are asking to have more control over execution. Okay. But I'm saying to get the blocks, you have gRPC.
Okay, so to get the data itself, you're saying is not available, even though you have execution control in gRPC.
Yeah.
I see.
So they exposed, for example, they exposed gRPC mostly because of Casper, right? And you have eval in CLI, like evaluate the code, which is not part of the blockchain. But you don't have eval in the gRPC. This is, you cannot do it with gRPC. So the question is why, right? And from other perspective, you have some stuff that are in the gRPC that are not available or inside the Rolang. For example, you can ask via gRPC, get me the blocks. But you don't have anything inside the Roland that you can say, okay, give me the blocks on the same node that I'm running now.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
I see. Yeah, I mean, you should basically document these use cases and link to them and put a feature request or something in the backlog. Because I'm thinking, I mean, I would think probably quite a few dApp developers might find this useful, right, at some point.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm thinking how to. So when you take a look at the gRPC, you can specify your service method, your like one way of communication. They call this like a service method. You can say my input can be two different things. It can be like data on one structure, or it can be a stream, and this also applies to the response. So you can have input stream and output stream. This means you have like a real-time communication with the streaming for both the input and the output. So I was thinking that maybe this is like enough low-level communication that we can have inside the rollup. And then when we have this, we can build from that other kinds of communication. Because if you have a stream, you can build all of the other stuff, right? This is how gRPC is working. So, but we don't have this inside the rollup that we can build anything. We just have standard output or.
Right. So going back to the random testing question. So if we were to start down that path, given that you don't have this ability to get number of blocks or something, we basically have to run them for X number of minutes or whatever, and then just shut it down, see what behavior it gives us, something like that. Or...
Yeah, and the problem is shutting down. How to shut down? I'm not sure that I know how to do it, because you have your process, you have your wrapper, and now this process is running.
Mm-hmm.
You're not able to just grab it and say, okay, stop, right? Although you started it and everything, but you cannot say you need to have something inside that you already put inside that you check for each round, right?
That's an interesting problem, yeah. So now, can you control?
But Greg was saying you can supply this reproduction energy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this process must be not any process. It must be aware of the food that is taking. So we need probably some kind of process that is taking food. That we can say, okay, I'm giving you food for each round, but after some round I will just stop giving you food and you will die. So something like that is in my mind. But
so then can we program that into the life model itself? Like, can we program a model of life that has an automatic death or expiry date or something like that? I mean,
yeah, I think this is exactly the point of Greg's.
We can do that, but we're talking about, this stuff is crazy because, I mean, let's talk about this next year.
No. So
we have
my
very
thing,
basic problems now, and generating random code is not helping us. It's just a waste of our time and mental energy at this point.
Is it? I mean, that's what
Absolutely.
I'm wondering. You think it's completely wasted? Okay. But see, Nadzipur and Tomislav are encouraging me, saying no, that's
nobody
not the
supports it, Raul. Nobody supports it.
Is that the case? Let me ask Tomislav. I thought he was supporting that, but if he's not, I mean, I'm fine with that. You just need to let me know.
I mean, this is like I said, this is like a difficult problem, but I think it makes sense to think about it and just what do we need, right? We need this kind of resources management.
If your priority is getting this blockchain out in a timely manner with as few bugs as possible, do you think going down the path of generating random programs is going to get us to mainnet faster?
No. That's just one of the things. I'm just trying to see what the community can do to help beyond, because just sitting down and writing a whole bunch of correct Roland code and then testing that is time consuming. So that's the reason why I'm exploring that path.
Well,
Not because you should not do the first one. I mean, obviously we should do as much of testing. And the question is, how do you get more testing without so much of man hours? That's kind of what I'm exploring.
And I'm glad that.
No, I think the random programs would only increase the man hours. For quite some time. I think that if we look at, we don't have man hours at all. I mean, we've got these thousands of programs that
Zipper identified the 800.
Yeah, whatever NutZipper is running now, and he's finding issues. Running this stuff. I mean, it's practically random stuff. Most of it doesn't run. He's only deploying it now. He's not trying to run it.
Well, here's the thing with those, right? With those things, let's say you are able to find a program that deploys. To make an actual test case out of that would still take effort to beyond deploy. If you want to go and say, okay, let's try to build a full process out of this.
It's going to take a lot less effort than making a test case out of something generated randomly.
Okay, so that's fair enough. So given that, I guess where you are, let me ask: can we automate in some way, shape, or form the things that are deploying, the 300 plus that are deploying? Can we put something around it to make them into a more useful or longer test of some kind, a more complete test?
I think that's what NutZipper is doing gradually. I mean, he has a thing that goes through sequentially and deploys.
No, he's going to the point of deploy, right? But is he going beyond the deploy?
And then going beyond the deploy, I don't think we can automate necessarily. I mean, we can certainly identify stuff. A lot of programs have a test program built in already, so they can be. They could be used as part of reductions.
Regression suite or something.
Regression testing and other things. If we say, okay, this deploy is supposed to generate this output, and if it doesn't generate this output, then something's wrong, or something's changed, whatever. I mean, there, that be interesting, to see if we can automate some of that. And we certainly see if we have these deploys that are supposed to work, and some of them, and we look for changes in the output, we could probably automate that to some extent. Certain changes we don't care about, like obviously date and time changes and things like that. But we can gradually increase, and basically we could just add test cases to it. We would want to be able to add test cases to it very easily. And if it was, I think it could automate pretty well for most cases. One of the big problems is that execution is non-deterministic. And so the order of the output is going to change, and that's not an error. So you want something that will deploy the code, capture the output of the code, and see if all the pieces are there, irregardless of what order they're in.
Jim, we will capture this in a par, right? And structural equivalence of the par is without order. So we just need to compare two pairs, and that's it.
Two what?
Two pairs. Two pairs. Par is a term constructor. Par. Right? In rolling, if we put all the terms in one par, one term in the par with another, right? We can compare pairs.
And I'm just talking about running these Rolang programs.
Yeah, but
you run the Rolang program as it is. You don't change it, and look at the output. Oh, I see what you're saying. You say use Rolang.
He's saying put the output in the par so that you can compare.
Put the output into a par, and then
and just compare it. The order is not important. This is exactly the structure equivalent.
So you're saying compare them in Rolang.
Exactly. This is why I would like to run all of these things inside the Rolang, because we don't need to do anything else. We have all of these things inside.
Well, we basically have to capture the output.
Yeah.
All right, so we can go ahead and automate that part then, so that we can actually get a regression suite or whatever out of these things.
But I see another opportunity here, right? I'm glad that we are talking about all the files existing on the GitHub, right? For me, this is like very important, because when you take a look how current languages are developed and new features are added, or they're not doing this blindly. For example, Haskell or Microsoft, when developed new feature for C# or Haskell, they're really aware of all of the packages that are currently existing in the package manager. So they're running all of the libraries and trying to see what are the errors that this change will bring. Or so I see this as a normal part of the software development, to understand what are the code in the wild, right? To see how it's working, what are the usual errors, and we can use this as something that we can give a feedback to the programmers, right? We can say, oh, we found out the syntax error in your code. You can easily fix it if you want, or this is like a security problem, right? This is useful for us, but it's also useful for the programmers we can have like two-way communication. We can get our info, but we can bring something back to developers. So I remember a few days ago when we were looking at this execution, one of these contracts was like a hello world example, which uses print as like a standard output, but the print was never defined, right? It's like a syntax error, and we could say to this programmer, okay, do you have this syntax error? Can you like fix it? Or like, this is trivial thing, but
right.
When we will have behavioral types, we can detect errors in other languages and report some security bugs. So we should definitely do in Rolang. So I'm glad for that. I'm glad that we are thinking about the code, existing code, and what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, I think also that what this would do is even just this comparison of pars, for example, is a technique for somebody developing an application to use in their own development, right? In that sense, we're also basically telling the app developers, hey, there is this technique you could use to quickly get at results, because they have the same question of, okay, well, the results are not going to be the same all the time. How do I compare? that sort of a thing. So,
yeah.
All right. So I think Tomislav is engaged on this. So the next thing is, how soon can we have them?
So yeah, now I'm more focused on this stuff of related to wallet and right. But I'm definitely thinking, how to write it. And I'm hoping that we can have like a better playground to play with all of this code and to be able to easily talk about this stuff, because I would like to that we all can take the code and play with it and like be more engaged than just wait for someone to write, and maybe we can just discuss some of these deploys that are failed and just try it on the session, what is wrong and try to fix it. And this is like a good learning example.
Okay. So you're thinking that maybe we can focus on this in a few sessions to go over the ones that are failing and see how we can fix them. But the other thing is, you were saying a better playground. What do we need for the better playground? Is that something we have to build as we go along, or is that?
This is the stuff that I was talking about. It would be nice to have all of this working directly inside the browser, because you can very easily create your own site. And for this, we need this proxy. So now I built this easy way to create client code, and you have two options. Directly gRPC, but you need to run the node, not the browser, or use the proxy, and you can have everything inside the browser. So and now I will run this proxy on my server, and I will show how this is like a useful, and maybe we can convince RChain so that they can run proxies for their service, for their validators. Right?
And then the applications can all be written using GraphQL.
Yeah, of course. We will have this API, and you can use. Yeah. But I'm imagining that GraphQL will be more we will get more value and more interesting stuff when GraphQL will get information inside the blockchain, not just RChain API. This is not very interesting, because now you can you can call these methods with the very easily, like a regular method with promise, right? So it's very easy to write, but with GraphQL you have additional features which it's really not used in this fashion. Right? You have static schema with all of the few methods, and yeah, I think that later when we will store different data inside the blockchain, and on this part we can generate GraphQL schema. That will be much more interesting. So I'm hoping to make this kind of examples.
With this web interface stuff that you're talking about, I was wondering, I mean, can we have a situation where somebody can pull the URL for a contract they want to run into the web interface, and then it goes and does all this stuff that you're talking about, whereby power comparison, etc., and then it comes back with the results saying this is what it is? Because that could be a nice debugging tool for someone developing applications to say, okay, here is my code. Let me just stick it into this web form, and then it does, and it goes and does all the stuff, and then spits back to them, here's what's going on, type of thing.
I don't understand what you mean. Comparing the output, comparing the par is the regression testing part of it. It doesn't find errors. If it didn't work before, you mean
Yeah, that's true. So I guess it could be used by a person for regression testing, but they need to know if what is in the pod actually makes sense. That's what you're saying, right? I mean, it can compare. I don't know. I have to think a little bit more about that.
This is also a question about how we present this information. I said that we have these two major operations: so deploy and listen. Right? We create a transaction and then listen on this data. So another step is, and this is what I was understanding your question, to somehow understand what is exactly stored in on which channel, right? That you can just pull some contract and say, okay, I will run this contract, right? I will, and this implies another layer of something like this is like a more complicated when you want to analyze what is inside the tuple space, right?
Mm-hmm.
How to store it, right? So I'm thinking that we first need to just, be comfortable to work with this way of storing data with deploys and listen, and this will be much more complicated to understand, what is the code inside and how can I use it, because everything is related to registry, right? Yeah. You just take some rolling term and you just say, okay, I want to be global, that others can see it, and I register this name so I can share it, and right from there everything is inside the tuple space. So we need to some kind of a language or different way of different way of how can we talk about these things? But because we will have now these strange names, which are just bunch of letters or characters that we need to translate in some meaningful names. When you talk about the list implementation of rolling, this can be many different list implementations. So we need this kind of DNS inside the rolling.
I see. Oh yeah. Okay.
And I would like to like push conversation in this space, right? That we can think about, this is like a Git, right? And I will store something on this node, and I will read it, and what can we build from there, like some kind of packages or whatever.
Right.
And I'm definitely expecting like input from Greg and Mike, and how they are thinking about that.
Okay. Yeah. So very good. I think we've got something else coming up in a couple of minutes. Let me. I'll sign off right now. Thank you very much, Tomislav. That what you're doing looks very promising, and I'm hoping that we can get to some degree of increased number of tests that are automated at some level or the other.
Yeah.
Don't listen to Jim White's cover.
Where's the link to your stuff there? If Thomas has any plans for anything that can be used in the short term for testing, let me know. Okay, I don't think he's described anything that fits that category, Rao. I think you're delusional if you think he has. Okay, now this thing where we compare we know the output is two processes in power 2, 3, and then we have different order 3, 2. We can see if they're equal, and it returns a true. Okay, this is something that's doable if we have sufficient number of contracts that include some test data, and we can grab the output and compare it.
So let's start with that. I mean, that's a good start, at least to get done with whatever contracts are deploying, to see if they go beyond and behave as they're supposed to.
So we have the governance meeting starting in this room in 6 minutes. I guess we should probably grab something to eat.
Yeah, that's why I want to